week number 2. And I will not start out every single week just saying that, but this is our second week of doing this series. And I'm so deeply excited because, Gwen, like we said on last week's show, you've been my right hand person since the beginning. And I'm grateful. There are times that it's wild because I typically argue with everybody. I mean, I think my partner, which for those of you who do not know, my partner is actually one of our other co-founders. She'll be on the show later on. She's interviewing a couple candidates because we just launched a candidate series, which I'll talk about here in a second. But I want to start the show by saying there was something that happened here in Kansas. Kansas legislative session just ended, and Kansas became the very first state to ban trans people from having access to a driver's license that matches their true identity. And people had to surrender their driver's licenses, including a trans woman. The video was posted by, I believe, Now This, and we shared it on our social media. Gwen, you sent it to me and like, hey, let's post this. It's a very heartbreaking video and deeply disturbing, deeply devastating.
I couldn't even say anything in the caption. It was just a heartbreak symbol. It was just so
Yeah, and
heartbreaking.
it's because there's nothing that you can say to justify this other than it's just about power and control. And it's a desperate attempt at erasing people that they don't like because they
Yeah.
don't understand it and the lack of education about what trans people are and who trans people are. And not just trans people, but also just queer people in general. And I say that as a non-binary person. Gwen, you're bisexual, and then my
Yeah.
partner is transgender. Like, and we're the three of us are very open about it. We're
Yeah.
very, we're out loud and proud.
Yeah. And I remember when I realized through therapy that I am bisexual, it confirmed it. And my therapist was like, well, maybe now you can understand trans people even better because it is, that it does. It helps you understand so much. So
And I think
yeah.
it's I did not know what a trans person was growing up.
No, I didn't
And
either.
the first
Yeah.
time I met a trans person, I went to an event, and this is all tying in together. But I think it's also important to have this conversation because it's going to lead into what I'm getting ready to talk about. Um, first time I met a trans person, it was actually at an event that I went to, and I was like, she doesn't look like the rest of us. And there's like that internal bias that goes on in your head. You're like,
Mm.
oh, this person looks weird, or
Yeah.
And I was taught, you know, people outside of what a male is supposed to look like and what a female is supposed to look like. Like these very binary, um, like what we all grow up around, right? And then we're exposed to something new, and it's very weird, and it's very like. But I sat down and talked to her for a good 2 hours after this meeting, and I tell you what, I walked away sobbing,
Mm.
hearing what she went through, her suicide attempts. She went through some conversion therapy. She went
Yeah.
through a lot of different things. But now,
Mm.
and I haven't talked to her in like several years. I never saw her again like after that. But it just really opened my eyes a lot. And ever since then, I just became a really big ally. And then I realized that I too was, I am non-binary. I came out as bisexual, but a Kansas rabbi was banned from the Senate gallery here in Kansas. His name is Rabbi Moti,
Mm.
and he was banned, but he does say that it was worth it. In an article from the Kansas Reflector, when Rabbi Moti Reiber shouted in frustration from the gallery of the Kansas Senate after it overturned the governor's veto on the state's anti trans law on February 17th, he turned to an oft quoted warning about the danger of political complacency. But he updated it for our time as soon as Senate President Ty Masterson, and anybody listening in Kansas, Ty Masterson's a complete asshole. Um, and he's also running
Yeah.
for governor, and he's running on a America First platform. Your
Yeah.
typical right wing. But Rabbi Modi stated, first they came for the trans people, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't. I didn't. I I'm getting emotional. First,
Yeah.
they came for the trans people. He shouted this, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't trans. Then they came for, and he kept going, which we know that this is actually from an older quote, just kind of like changing the words a little bit. But he was shouting during his exit, and according to reported by Kansas Reflectors, Morgan Chilson, his Parthian shot at the lawmakers was "shame on you."
Yeah.
And Ty Masterson banned him from the Senate gallery for the rest of the session. Um, the next day, the Kansas House joined the Senate 87 to 37 in overriding the veto. The bill became law with its publication February 28th at the Kansas Register, forcing people to use bathrooms in state buildings that match their biological sex at birth. It also allowed Kansans to sue if they feel aggrieved by someone of the opposite sex using a
Mm,
public restroom. This is the part that's not talked about. Prevents anyone from changing gender markers on driver's licenses and birth certificates, and prompted the state to invalidate the licenses of 275 individuals
yeah.
who had legally changed the gender on their driver's license. Luckily, my partner is through Missouri. Missouri did not pass this during this legislative session, which is good. That's good to
Good.
hear. But Kansas,
Yeah.
unfortunately, did, which is her home state.
Yeah.
Um, she will
Which
most
is a
likely,
total betrayal,
it
you know,
is,
for
and she
people
will
who
most
work and pay
likely,
taxes and give back to society. It's just a total betrayal. So,
and this rabbi is 62 years old. Not that that
yeah.
matters, but he's older,
Well, it does
and
matter. Yes.
he is a huge ally. He really is.
Yeah. It's
And
amazing.
he uses his platform, and he is such a fantastic person.
Yeah. And I
And
think, people who are in the Jewish faith, if you're really, it's like Christianity and all these, organized religions. If you really follow it, then you are supposed to love thy neighbor. And, um, I think that he's an amazing example of someone who is doing that. And I'll let you finish. I had one more thought, but I want you to
no,
finish
you're
what you were
good.
saying. Yeah,
I think just these egregious. I always fuck up on that word, but
it is egregious. Yeah, yeah.
these egregious attacks on marginalized communities is nothing more than just hate.
Yep.
And it's a distraction from literally everything else that's kind of going on. And I don't say that very often because the distraction is the bonus, but cruelty is literally the point, is what they're actually trying to do is the cruelty part and trying to eradicate marginalized communities. This goes back to the Stonewall era. And even before Stonewall, you had Harvey Milk. Even before Harvey
Yep.
Milk, there was so many others that came before that. But
Mm.
I can't help but also think about the drag queen Divine, and she passed away
Mm.
many years ago, a couple decades
Yeah.
ago. And that watching her be herself, and then also listening to the videos of Sylvia Rivera speaking and Marsha P.
That
Johnson,
was good. Yeah.
I my heart literally shatters every time I think about how far we've come as a society, but how much further we still have to go because we can't be free unless all of us are free.
Absolutely. And
And
mhm.
it continues going. And the generational trauma also
Yes.
continues to exist. And I'll leave it with this, but I think the last year has really opened my eyes a lot. Working alongside you and working alongside, my partner and um just kind of like everything that we've been doing, like interviewing the Epstein spreaders, has been very eye opening to me,
Yeah.
and it confirms a lot of the suspicions that I always had, about Trump and about Epstein. It confirms that, but I
Yeah.
also think that we need to elect people who get it, people who understand, the working class, the poor, the unhoused, the sick, the marginalized. They're coming. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. Yeah, we see what's happening. We watched Renee Good be murdered by a masked agent in Minneapolis, and then we learned about Alex Preddy, and then Keith Porter. We talked about Keith Porter on our last episode.
Yeah.
but it's just a devastating time in this country, and
Yeah.
it's all a policy choice.
Yeah.
Everything
And
is literally a policy choice. The stroke of a pen can change all of it. They just refuse to do so.
absolutely. And, these bathroom laws, all these things that they're passing, and as you said, in Kansas and around the country, um, I heard something on Instagram that really enlightened me and was such a great point. I believe it was by a trans woman, and she said, if trans people, if it makes you so that the idea of a man, if people, if trans rights, are, they're obviously human rights, and if the idea of a man dressing up as a woman and going into the wrong bathroom scares you, then the problem isn't trans people, it's cis men who keep abusing people that make people afraid of them. And the the underlying issue is teaching men to stop abusing. And that's really where we're at. And all of it is, they're using trans people as a scapegoat for the abuses that we've seen. And again, it's not every man, but it is
But
always
it's
a
always a
man.
man.
Yeah. And that was such a great point because the problem, again, isn't trans people, it's men. And
You know what my mom says? My mom says every problem that a woman has is men. Menstrual cycle. Uh,
yeah.
so, like, thinking about that, and uh, speaking of women, and speaking of men, and Melania Trump made some very alarming comments, and this is where I'm going to have you jump in. And she made some very alarming comments during, I think it was like a speech, or it was the address and such. But we want to talk about that for a second because it made all of us sit here like, okay.
Yeah, so Melania Trump, and I'm sure most people who are listening know this, she went, basically got in front of the presidential podium, and people that was kind of wild in general because people are like, well, she's not the co-president here. That's not really what you do when you're in that position. Decided to have this press conference, and according to the New York Times, she alerted the administration, her team alerted the administration she was going to have this like last minute kind of press conference. And pe people are speculating whether Trump knew or not she was going to do this. I don't know what, like, it would kind of be wild to me if she was allowed to do that without him knowing what she was going to talk about. But nonetheless, she got up there and basically tried to remove herself from the whole Epstein conversation and said, I didn't know Epstein. We weren't friends. We just kind of frequented the same parties. And I, met my husband by chance because basically there are these recordings that the journalist Michael Wolff is claiming to have that has Epstein on record saying that he was actually a year before he introduced Trump and Melania, or he was one of the people who introduced them. He had slept with Melania. And, there's all these things that are in the Epstein files about, the first time they had sex, it was on the Lolita Express, which is Jeffrey Epstein's plane that he used to traffic these underage girls. And, speculation is that it was also underage boys. Um, and, Melania, I think, and I think a lot of people are saying is like she was trying to get ahead of the story because I don't know what exactly is going to come out, but it sounds like either, I don't know if Michael Wolff is the only one who has these tapes, you know what I'm saying? And so but it's so ridiculous that, and also so out of touch of her to think we're just stupid, and there's literally correspondence, very, very friendly correspondence in the Epstein files between Ghislaine Maxwell and Melania saying, oh, like, can't wait to see you, Jeffrey looked great. Like Melania is praising them. And there's multiple emails too. I mean, there's one big one that really gets called out all the time, but there's multiple. And I think Melania Trump is an example of a woman who has used feminism to her advantage, but yet wants to take that away from other women. Um, because she's kind of in her, I want to like kind of say it feels like she's like in a tower, right? She's removed from what the rest of the country is actually dealing with. Um, and then she used the whole opportunity to plug her book, which was, a slap in the face to survivors. Another thing that was a slap in the face to survivors is she said, and she broke from Trump, saying that the crimes Epstein committed were real, but she wasn't a part of them, kind of thing. But
It's
she,
still guilty by
right?
association,
Oh
and
yeah, definitely.
it's
And she,
complicity.
yes, it really is. And she also said that, she was ending her speech, and one of the reporters shouted out, "Are you going to meet with the survivors?" Because she claimed that she cares about the survivors. And instead, she turns around, walks away, struts away, and I think that that was almost like a Pam Bondi moment, where she refused to face the survivors and again actually address like who who really needs, to be, survivors deserve justice. And Melania doesn't care about that. And I think her press conference kind of showed that, even though she was, again, trying to get ahead of something, whatever might be coming out further, um, and dismissing things as rumors when there's a paper trail, right? There are receipts for these things, and it's all slowly coming out.
Which,
So,
speaking of Lolita Express, I don't know if you knew this, but Jeffrey's plane, Lolita
mhm.
Express, also known as, let me get the name correct. Let me get the name of it correct. I know it's a Boeing. It is Boeing 727, which, formerly owned by Jeffrey Epstein. And I don't know if you actually know where it's located. It has been
I,
located. It's in a current state of decay. It's been there for over a decade. It's now 10 years, and it is in Brunswick Golden Isles Airport in Brunswick, Georgia, is where it is. That is where the plane is located, and apparently it's still in the same state. There's different articles that kind of talked about it, from the New York Post, which I can't fucking stand, and
I
then
know.
the Atlanta Journal Constitution. They did an article back in March, on March 12th, so a little over, literally a month ago. Inside Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, left untouched in South Georgia for nearly a decade. Inside paperwork bearing the names of Epstein and longtime associate Ghislaine Maxwell, monogrammed items, and flight materials remain scattered throughout the aging aircraft. Contributor Jade Garcia follows AJC reporter Adam Van Brimmer inside the plane, which now sits largely untouched on the inside, while the exterior slowly deteriorates in humid South Georgia climate. Um, Department of Justice, and it is deeply alarming. So the plane has been located, and it's been there literally for over a decade. Um, Epstein allegedly died in 2019 of a suicide. However, it's not coincidental. Um, so let's kind of shift gears here a little bit, because your friend Afton Bain, who ran for Congress,
Yeah.
is currently a state rep in the state of Tennessee. Her and another incredible human being, Representative Heidi Campbell,
Hmm. Heidi
Campbell,
Kleinmold. Yep.
um, wants to do something that I think is very impactful. And I'm going to let you talk about this, but it's called Pots for Potholes. And I love this. I love this aspect. I love this. Because I don't know, thinking about Zohra Mamdani, every time I see one of these graphics, it cracks me up. And he's filled 100,000 holes. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
so hard to keep my composure, but he's filled 100,000 holes. But trying so hard. But every time I see that graphic, I think of our friend Ricky.
I was literally about to say the gay liberal. Yeah, Ricky. Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
how I think about it, because he's obsessed with that man. But there's nothing wrong with
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah.
He's very easy to look at, and very easy to yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
we can fantasize, but anyway, but Zoran is the example of leadership. that this country absolutely needs. I know he's gotten a lot of attention, he's got a lot of flack, he has a lot of backlash, but I think in the end, Zoran is the future of politics, and people like Zoran. And there's a candidate that's running in his seat, in his old seat, Diana Moreno. She's also a Democratic Socialist, and she's a badass. Just a shameless plug. But anyway, pots for potholes, because we're talking about potholes, and I started thinking about New York City. New York
Yeah, for
City
sure.
has massive potholes, and I mean, like,
Yeah, but at least, their mayor is doing something about it. Unlike we have crazy potholes here too. Like people talk about it all the time. Um,
which the plan for pots for potholes would
yeah,
be.
yeah. So Afton and Heidi's Pot for Potholes is basically legalizing marijuana, which would free a bunch of incarcerated people of color that are unjustly there. Of course, that needs to happen. And then also using the tax money that we would do you that we would the money that would we would use to tax the THC companies would be used to address the pothole issue. And then once all the potholes are filled, we can go and address more infrastructure with this tax money. And Tennessee is one of those states, and I know a lot of states are corrupted in their government by things, but Big Pharma is in the Tennessee legislature. It's like one of the biggest lobbyists here, and they don't want people to have access to a plant that can help you when they want you on other, you know, medicines and things that, where they make money. So it's what's happening is the Tennessee legislature decided that, and I've been talking to a cannabis lobbyist here, who has been fighting to basically bring this issue about because in June of this year, 2026, we will basically hundreds of thousands of cannabis businesses. These are small businesses, which the GOP claims to care about small business, but they will be losing their businesses because they're making it illegal to have this like THC Delta 9. Um, and it's really a shame because again, pot for potholes, it would bring in so much money to help our state, but because the big pharma, and I also want to say big alcohol is so involved in
And
our,
gambling.
yeah, and gambling in our Tennessee life. I know, I was like thinking like, do high people gamble? Probably not the same way drunk people gamble, right? But
They're just a
maybe
lot
not on the same
happier.
level. Yeah, yeah, maybe not on the same level, but yeah, or, kind of thing.
They're just a
But
lot
it's
happier, is a lot of it, based on what I
yeah,
understand.
they don't want to punch somebody, when they're angry and, high versus when you're angry and drunk. But yeah, so it's a huge
Oh
missed
my God.
opportunity again by our legislature. And I know that the Trump administration had signed something that Mitch McConnell pushed through that was going to hurt the cannabis industry nationwide. But some states are suing, like Texas is suing, but I don't think Tennessee is suing, which is a problem because, again, we're going to have so many small businesses closing here. Um, and they were promised, by the way, that they would not touch cannabis here, but they did. Um, and
They were
here we
promised a
are.
lot of things that they weren't
Oh,
going to
yeah.
touch,
Oh, yeah.
and
But like, think about the investment these companies, these small businesses have made and now they're being told, sorry, you guys got to shut down. And the only loophole from what I heard from the cannabis lobbyists that I talked to, is that you can deliver bud and you can have edibles up to a certain amount, like 0.3% or something of Delta 9. But either way, like that's, it's becoming an increasing issue here. And pot for potholes, again, I don't know if it's going to happen because we're so behind in the Tennessee legislature. And this is literally coming up 2 months from now, less than 2 months from now. Um, but I wanted to talk about it because it's a brilliant idea. And of course, the freaking GOP supermajority in the Tennessee legislature doesn't want it to happen. So,
oh, of course.
boo, Tennessee legislature, boo. But go Acton Bane, go Heidi Campbell, and you know the people who are fighting for cannabis legalization and getting innocent people out of prison. That's the other thing too. They want people to be slave laborers in prisons because they make so much money. And, Tennessee is one of the worst states for that. So, and I know next week we'll be talking about all that more. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
next week we'll be talking more in depth about the Alabama solution and talking about, what they have experienced and what they have faced. And those inmates recorded their own footage of what's really going on in the conditions inside of these prisons. And Governor Kay Ivey has the authority. Sorry, I just killed an ant. Um,
RIP.
random thought, um, or random action, but I got distracted by a fucking ant. But anyway, you don't have to edit this part, obviously,
It
but
could have been your ancestor, Zachary, that you just killed.
ooh, almost a summer there. We're gonna move on.
Yeah, sorry. Spiritual thought. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, definitely spiritual. We can go with that. Anyway, so thinking about I lost my train of thought.
The
But
Alabama solution and what's
yeah,
going on in
so
the,
the
yeah.
Alabama solution, there's a documentary that everybody can watch. I think it's on HBO Max. And it's definitely something that really fucked me up. And I say that because this documentary was released in October of 2025, so little under a year ago, right? And it's a 115-minute film that it uses contraband cell phone footage taken by inmates to highlight rampant violence, drug abuse, and fatal neglect. And Alabama is one of the worst states whenever
Yeah.
it comes to mass incarceration. And Governor Kay Ivey, luckily, she's I think she's retiring, not running again, one of the two. Um,
Bye-bye.
she's a terrible excuse to be human, if you can even call her that,
Yeah,
because
she is.
she
Yeah.
has made millions of dollars off the backs of these people. But I'll go in and talk more about that. And I have a video that we will also share that is kind of like a trailer. We'll share that. We'll add it in, and so stay tuned for that. Shifting gears a little bit, and we were talking about like federal cuts and things like that on not only on this episode but last week. One article from 19th News, which this is one of my favorite news sources
Oh,
because they're an
yeah.
independent nonprofit, and they report on like gender, politics, policy, power, elections, etc. But they put out an article earlier this week or late last week, um, titled "Federal Grants Can Save the Lives of Abuse Victims." $200 million is sitting unspent. Keep in mind, these are dollars that Congress has already appropriated. Changes made by the White House are preventing the distribution of funds meant to help survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and trafficking. This year's grants are missing too. No surprise by the man that's mentioned millions of times in the
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein files. No
Yeah. Seems
surprise
to
at
be
all.
a big pattern with this administration. And, where's that money going?
Well, we know where it's going,
The
which will
$200
talk.
million. Yeah.
We know where it's going. We know
Yeah,
exactly
we
where it's
do.
going. It's not going
Right
where
into their pockets.
that, and then also, to bail out other countries because they
Yeah.
can't keep their conflicts to themselves. Anyway,
Yeah.
without going into that, but the Office of Violence Against Women in the Department of Justice is tasked with administering grants prescribed by the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA, first passed in 1994. Congress appropriated $713 million to the office in fiscal year of 2025, which ended September 30th. Only $472 million of that has been distributed, according to an analysis, or allegedly distributed. According to an analysis of publicly available documents by the 19th, an additional $36 million went toward financing the management of the office itself per the DOJ grants budget. That leaves at least $204 million as of April 9th, when this article, I believe, came out, um, that essentially has not been allocated to the groups that depend on these grants. And what we're seeing is a massive crisis. The number of rapes, the number of domestic violence. We're also getting into the warmer weather, which obviously warm weather, alcohol, barbecue. I'm adding
Yeah.
barbecue because a lot of people do cookouts, which
Hmm.
also brings on a whole another onslaught of issues with violence, right? Because the warmer the weather gets, the more violence begins to increase. Just like whenever it gets colder outside, people are isolated, the suicide rate skyrockets. Which obviously right now there is a lot going on. There's there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot.
an
Yeah.
executive order issued last year is contributing to the holdup by adding a new step to the evaluation of federal grant making, requiring that all grants be approved by a senior political appointee. The order explicitly takes aim at research funding distributed by the National Science Foundation, which President Donald Trump accused of supporting, quote, anti-American ideologies. Let's be real. What anti-American is anything that actually is going to help somebody is
Yeah.
going to be anti-American because that's the true American dream.
Yeah.
Anyway, federal grant administration had already been disrupted for months prior to August 2025 order. Elon Musk federal cost cutting initiative terminated grants that mentioned gender or diversity. And one of the things that there was a couple teenagers that he had that was helping him, or like younger people. I don't know if they're necessarily teenagers or not.
Yeah, like
They
literally like college age or fresh out of college.
Yeah, and
Like
they
so
sat
young.
down for a deposition, and they tried to block that deposition from being publicly viewed. However, a federal court stepped in and is allowing that deposition to be viewed because the people have a right to understand what grants were cut because that is from federal tax dollars, right?
Yeah.
So in that, they utilized AI
Yes.
and they openly admitted that they used AI to go through, they typed in LGBTQ. And then like, oh, this grant looks good to cut. We're gonna cut this one, cut this one, cut this one, cut this one. They didn't even like physically look at it. All they did was just type in LGBTQ or gender or
Or
diversity,
ho the
equity.
Holocaust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even like Holocaust or like
Yeah.
genocide or anything like that.
Yeah.
They remove these grants, but they utilized AI to do it. And this administration likes their AI. I mean, you look at the propaganda that they're posting on social media. It's very disgusting. I can't even go look at the White House social media because it's so filled with just ideological bullshit that I can't even deal with. And Jennifer Welch says it best, taco
Yeah.
tits. It cracks me up every time I think about
So
it. But
true.
Jennifer Welch, shout out to you. Um,
Yep. I've had it podcast. We've all had it.
yeah, and it's more than just a podcast name because it's absolutely true. I've had it, you've had it, we've all had it,
Yeah.
and I feel like there needs to be a subset of their podcasts that we've all had it.
Yeah.
But the other hot topic right now, and it's a lot. Needless to say, the last week has been very triggering for survivors
Yeah.
and Eric Swalwell. So
Oh boy.
our comments, whenever we first initially posted about Eric Swalwell, we got annihilated in those comments.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening and doesn't know, we are a movement, a grassroots movement founded by survivors for survivors. So obviously, we believe survivors. And me and Gwen specifically have interviewed two of the Jeffrey Epstein survivors. We post about survivor stories all the time. This is nothing different than that.
Right.
These women bravely came forward about Congressman Eric Swalwell. He's obviously denied all of his allegations. He was not going to run for Congress again. He was going to run or was attempting to run for California governor. However, as of literally last night, 4/12, he posted on Twitter saying that he is suspending his campaign. And obviously, he's going to continue fighting the quote unquote false allegations. But whenever you have four women credibly come forward and share their experiences and share their stories, and also go on record, mind you,
Yeah.
the Manhattan District Attorney has now launched an investigation into Eric Swalwell. And then also, we learned today that the House Ethics Committee has also launched an investigation into Eric Swalwell. Now, let me be clear, it doesn't just stop there because we need to take
Right.
every single one of them down. It does not matter what position you hold, it does not matter who you are, who you represent. If you take advantage of a vulnerable human being, you deserve to be prosecuted at the highest extent. It does not matter if you are a Democrat. It does not matter if you're a Republican. It does not matter if you're gay, straight, trans, whatever. You need to be held accountable. And I've seen people trying to say, oh, well, what's the evidence and what's the proof? And then these are also the same people that are going to
Yeah.
go in and post about the Jeffrey Epstein files. Like, yes,
Yeah.
let's talk about the Jeffrey Epstein files, but it doesn't just stop with Jeffrey Epstein whenever there's still people like Jeffrey Epstein that are still running rampant and they're controlling our government.
Yes.
They are
Yes.
controlling our fucking government. They're elected officials, whether it be mayors or city council or school board or, I don't know, a president. Like,
Yeah.
it's very obvious and it's blatant that it's all a direct cover up. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. It's all a cover up because the top 1%, they profit off of people's misery. They
Right.
profit off of what these women are going through.
Yeah.
And
The
they
richest
continue to
exploit the
silence
poorest.
them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's like where our society's been at. And, when people said that, well, I don't care that Trump said grab him by the pussy or that he is a proven, rapist, abuser, and he still owes millions of dollars to
Mhm.
Eugene Carroll, his victim, one of his
Yep.
victims.
Yep.
When our people voted for that, when people of color, like when there's people from all marginalized groups, not just including straight, white men, um, you know, voting for this, they said, you know what, we don't really care that much about sexual assault. And it's so obvious, especially when, I have people that I was surprised were like defending Eric Swalwell. And Eric Swalwell is someone who, and I, like especially with all of these, allegations coming out, I 100% believe the women. I remember his personal account followed my page, but didn't follow Rise Above Justice Movement, and I thought that was a little weird.
It is very
And
weird.
it's strange, and I noticed he's followed a lot of female creators, and
Mhm.
there's been female creators coming out saying, "Oh, he actually DM'd me like his no like
Mhm.
I DM'd him and then he's DMing me his number." And I never DM'd him, but he followed me and I think he still follows me and stopped following me, Eric Swalwell. Or I have to force him to unfollow me, whatever. But it just kind of is like there's like a pattern of these quote unquote I'm a progressive man, but it's
They
still
actually have
there's
skeletons in their closet.
yeah, they're doing that. They're following like survivors and these female creators who speak out about survivors, etc., because they themselves are guilty.
Mhm.
And also, they might just want to be creepy and look at these beautiful women creators, like that's also something because I was just like when he followed me, I was like, this is a not Rise Above Justice Movement. I was like, this is a little creepy. Like I got this like weird gut reaction, but I was like, okay. And also Eric Swalwell kind of lost me when, first of all, he takes APAC money, which, there's a lot of Dems do
There's a
and
lot of them.
everything. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I understand you need money for a campaign, but we're trying to 100% get away from that. Keep money out of politics, etc. Um, but also when he was one of the Democrats that broke with his party to thank ICE, and that was
Yes.
what, like a year
Yes.
ago? And
Yes.
I was like, fuck this guy. I was mad. And I was like, you know what? I no longer really support him, and there's been other things, but those two things really stood out to me for sure. So, um, you
You
know,
know,
people who talk the talk but don't walk the walk, just, pay attention to those people. And Eric Swalwell is one of those people.
speaking of that, last week, and along the same line, we mentioned about looking up to Stella Parton, which is Dolly Parton's sister, and we
Yes. Oh
we
my gosh.
praised her, and we were like, "Oh, she's this
We love
incredible
her.
human being. We
Yeah.
love her." However, 2 days ago, whenever this whole Eric Swalwell story really came to light, she posted a series of threads on Threads. Posted posted a serious posted.
A,
How do
ser
I word this?
a series of threats. Was that what you're gonna say?
Threats?
No,
Threads.
sorry. Sorry. A series, like she ranted basically. She was
She
like
went, yeah,
ranting.
she essentially went on
Went
a
on a
whole
rant.
rant on
Yeah.
Threads, which we know is still a meta platform.
Not
And
threats. Sorry, y'all.
she started it as, I'm always going to be an advocate for other women, but we must not fall into using accusations of sexual abuse as a means to destroy lives for political gain. That makes us no better than the people who are actually guilty. I find it suspect these women have just now come forward to accuse Eric Swalwell Why not before now? Stella, you're the exact reason for why they didn't come forward because they
Yeah.
knew exactly what was going to happen whenever you come out against a quote unquote powerful man.
Yeah.
Look about
And
Jeffrey, look about Donald Trump, look about Jeffrey Epstein, look about all of the others.
yeah, and also if she'd done more research to, Mrs. Frazzled is a creator who helped expose what happened with
And
these
Cheyenne
survivors were
Hunt.
and Cheyenne Hunt, yeah, they're coming forward, like these survivors were coming forward telling them do not associate with Eric Swalwell. Um, and these survivors have been trying to release this for like a year. It's been over a year. Or no, 2 years. Something wild. Like the press just didn't pick it up. And if it wasn't for these creators, this story would never have broken, probably. So they've been trying. The survivors have been trying to say something, but no one was listening, which is pretty typical.
And
So
sitting here blaming survivors for not coming forward before is the exact reason why survivors don't come forward. And Stella Parton is
absolutely.
contributing into that. She has this platform. She knows she has a platform because of who her sister is. And let's be clear, and I don't mean that's the way it's going to come out, but I'm going to say it. She would not have a platform if it wasn't for Dolly.
Oh, of course
And
not. Of
I'm
course not.
going to be the first to say that. I understand she's her own person, and this is not me like picking that apart, but your sister is one of the biggest country music stars literally in the entire universe.
Yeah,
They know you because of your sister.
of course.
What have you done to contribute to society, Stella? I mean, let's be real. Like, yeah, you are very involved in politics. I understand that. And, historically, you've been very outspoken on the Epstein files, but literally just today, you're still blaming these women. Literally made a post just about like 10 minutes ago. It's 4:10 p.m.
Yeah.
Made a post just 10 minutes ago on Threads that I'm looking at right now on my
Hmm.
laptop. And you're still blaming these women. And why didn't you come forward before?
Yeah.
Stella, you're the exact reason for why they didn't come forward before because
Yeah.
of people like you, because they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. And she criticizes her sister Dolly Parton for not being politically outspoken enough. So, but
And
this
it's,
just goes over the line. And then didn't she say some more things like about how you dress and stuff when you go out? Wasn't that part of
yes.
that whole
And
thread? Yeah, which was
yeah, and
honestly disgusting
it's
and
victim blaming.
so internalized, like it sounds like internalized misogyny.
Oh,
Like I
absolutely.
was like, wow, this is so backwards. And I know because Dolly Parton also is someone who says, I'm not a feminist, but she lives her life as a feminist. And I don't think that generation fully understands what feminism is. So, you want to give that generation a pass, but she should know better. Dolly Parton claims to be like this like super progressive and informed person and again criticizes her sister for not being the same and yeah it's pretty wild and I actually my sound engineer works for Dolly Parton and there's a lot of things that I've heard um, and I, I'm seriously shocked by Stella Parton I really am.
Yeah, 100%. And it's deeply alarming to the fact that again, she's going to sit here and defend the Jeffrey Epstein files. However, you want to talk about these other survivors that are coming out against other, quote unquote, powerful, people, right, that hold the power and hold the decisions and make our bills and, pass laws that affects our lives, right? We don't need somebody like Eric Swalwell. We don't need somebody like Donald Trump. We don't need those
Yeah.
people controlling our lives, controlling our government. We
Right.
don't.
And people,
We don't need it.
yeah. And people are mad because they're like, well, we might now lose California to Republican governor. And I'm like, I don't want a freaking another predator in
Mm-hmm.
that seat. I don't want any more predators in our government. And if there's something we can actively do about that, we should be taking those steps because you can't call yourself progressive. You can't call yourself someone who cares about survivors unless you actually take those steps. And we can't move forward as a society if we're not honest. And then
Mm-hmm.
someone was like, oh, like what he does on his personal time doesn't matter.
No,
I want
it
a
does.
leader. I want a leader. Well, that's not someone who's a leader to me. So
No.
that shouldn't be someone who's a leader to anybody, quite
Whenever
frankly.
you are an elected official, um you practically kiss your private life goodbye.
Yeah,
Because at that point, everything you do, say, and etc. will be used against you. as it absolutely should be.
Yeah.
And it's so, again, it's so deeply alarming thinking about all these people that are coming out defending these perpetrators.
Yeah.
And it,
Shocked
God
by
forbid, God forbid they become a survivor themselves, or God forbid, a loved one become a survivor. They're going to get that same exact treatment that they put out into the world. And I firmly believe in karma. What goes around comes around. If you talk about somebody else and not believing, how are people going to believe you whenever you come forward and try to share your own story? Because
yeah.
they're going to
And
remember what you said. They're
hmm
going to remember. Words do matter and words do hurt. And people are going to remember. They may not remember exactly what you said, but they will remember how they felt whenever you said it. They're going to remember that.
absolutely.
And they're going
Yeah.
to, those flashbacks come back like, oh, didn't you say, you didn't believe the survivors that came out against Eric Swalwell or Jeffrey Epstein or Donald Trump or, Harvey Weinstein or, all these other men, and women too, because there are women perpetrators, but it's mainly men. Um, it,
Someone I
it's
can
so alarming.
say who is a survivor who surprised me on Eric Swalwell's really pathetic video where he's like, I'm innocent, blah blah,
Mhm.
before he stepped like pulled back from the race, was Sharon Stone, who is a survivor of a studio executive who assaulted her and harassed her. So she said something, some comment was like, obviously, like agreeing with Eric Swalwell. I mean, she could have been sarcastic, but it didn't come across that way. She was like, obviously. And people are like, wow, like imagine if someone hadn't believed you when you said that you are a survivor of the studio executive. Um, and, just to hold people accountable, I'm just calling her out by name because maybe, hopefully, if she didn't mean it, like the obviously was sarcastic, she would say something, but also it's almost obvious what the comment meant. So, and people were like shocked by that. So,
Oh, absolutely, as they
and then
should
she's
be.
just one example of many, and people who are survivors that were like, we believe Eric Swalwell, and there's no due process. And Zachary, you had a fantastic comment back to someone who was on our page because again, you said we got annihilated in the comments because people were upset. Like, y'all are part of the reason we're losing the race, all this stuff. And it's like, no, now we can focus on the right candidates and giving them the attention. And you had said, where did I ever say anything about due process? Like, of course he should get due process, but he should also not be in this race. And that was like a fantastic response
And
that you
also,
had.
not to mention the fact you want to sit here and talk about due process. What about the immigrants that are being literally kidnapped off of our streets? What about their due process? Oh, you're going to be quiet about it? Then don't fucking talk to me about due process.
Yep.
Do not talk to me about due process until you fully understand what the fifth and the 14th, or the fourth, fifth and the 14th Amendment completely stand for. Because the right to due process applies to literally everybody, regardless citizen or not. It applies to every single person that's on American soil.
Yeah,
And yes, you're right. Eric Swalwell does deserve his right to due process as guaranteed by the Constitution, and he's going to receive
absolutely.
that. He's going to get his day in court. You know how many people have not received their day in court and have been sent to a country that they have no fucking idea or any connections? Where is the outrage? The selective outrage and the white women
Yeah.
syndrome is the part that really gets to me the most.
Yeah.
And seeing
Yeah. White women,
survivors
yeah.
even defending the actions of Eric Swalwell because, oh,
Oh,
he's a
yeah.
Democrat. Oh
Right.
my God. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what party somebody belongs to. It doesn't matter, again, what position they hold. If you rape somebody or you sexually assault or domestic violence, whatever, you deserve due process. Yes. I mean,
Yes.
it's literally common sense. It's literally in the US Constitution. We know how these systems are set up. We know how these systems were designed to harm survivors. It doesn't help us. Oftentimes,
Yeah.
survivors wind up behind bars. I'm thinking about the Sandy Melger case. I'm thinking about oh, what was her name? I can't remember one of the other or Centoya Brown. Was a
Yeah.
survivor and killed her abuser and killed her
Yeah.
trafficker
Yeah.
and wound up incarcerated.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
these systems are not built for survivors, literally at all, because they don't believe us. And
Right.
whenever I came forward with my own sexual assault, the police department in my hometown of Independence, Missouri, literally stated, well, you're a man. Why didn't you fight him off? And just asking
Hmm.
those really alarming questions. Like, I came to you about something that happened to me, and you're dismissing that. You're
Yeah.
dismissing the fact that I went through trauma. I'm literally sitting here, I'm bruised. I'm literally trying to explain something to you. Instead of doing a rape kit, I'm sitting in this lobby with my mom
Yeah.
doing absolutely nothing, trying to defend that, oh, yes, I was raped, but I'm a man. You're supposed to fight him off. And well, I'm 120 pounds and at the time I was like 5'6". I wasn't my full height yet, which I'm only 5'7", but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
still very short, but at the same time, like, and he was like 6 foot. I can't fight him off.
Yeah.
I'm not that strong. Like I said, I weighed like 120 pounds at that time, and the weight that I have now is from medication. It's
Hmm.
really hard to work off, especially whenever
Yeah.
you're going through trauma and you continue the systems and pumping you
Absolutely.
full of medications, like all of
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
But just thinking about everything right now, I think it's just so deeply alarming with what's going on. And I was going to talk about Mississippi, but I'm going to save it for next week whenever we talk about the Alabama solution, because it kind of
Yeah.
ties into that. So I will save that. But is there anything else that you wanted to highlight? Any other things going on? I know that you're getting ready to perform at the Canna Fest later, either
Yes.
this week or next week.
Yes.
Um,
On Sunday, Nashville Canna Fest. Come on out if you're in Nashville.
I
We
think
want to
that's
see you.
I think that's incredible, and I love
Yeah.
that. I think it's
It's
really
a
cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a 3-day festival. It's being put on by our cannabis lobbyist, Marley Sims, and tickets are only $20 for the whole weekend. So y'all should come out and enjoy. And what's sad too is this might be the last time we can do this in Tennessee until they
Mhm.
freaking get their act together. So let's
If
make it one big party. And it's literally 4:20 right now as I'm saying that. That's wild. Y'all know what time it
hell
is.
yeah, Q Gwen song "All the Weight I Need."
Let's go.
Oh my god, and that's is that on your set list?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh, of course.
I think everybody's gonna feel that one. They're gonna love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But overall, what other updates do you have that you're currently working on? And then I have an announcement too. But what else are you working on? I know you have an album coming out later this year. I
Yeah, we
think you said
just got it.
October.
Yeah, I think it's going to be end of September. So,
Mm,
yeah, close to October. Very excited about it. And, there's going to be a lot of anthems on here. And I can't wait to hear what y'all think. And Zachary hasn't even heard it yet, but I'm like so excited. We just filmed the music video for one of the singles that I'll tell you, it's called Shut Up. And, kind of, I think a lot of us are feeling that way about a lot of
ooh,
people. Yeah.
a lot
So
of things, a lot of people.
yeah. And I always grew up like being told shut up was a bad word. So now it's kind of
Mm,
fun to just like,
throw it
it's
back
like
at them,
my fuck you now. So
pretty much.
yeah.
And
And I'm
then,
wearing some Rise Above Justice Movement merch in
oh,
the music video. So yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see you. I see you.
Yeah. 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 I can't wait for you to see it.
I don't even have my own shirt, which is wild. Speaking of which, so we have our own merch line.
Yeah.
We have a Venmo. We also have, I mean, it's
Yeah.
very bare, but that'll continue ongoing because we're not bought for. We volunteer our time to bring awareness to the situation that's going on. And we know how mainstream media and like corporate media, they do not cover a lot of the stories that you and I cover, a lot of the things that we talk about. If they do, it's very seldomly or only when it makes them money from the clicks. So we donate our time and volunteer our time because we actually give a damn. And
Yep.
speaking of giving a damn, so we on our podcast, obviously this is the video version of the podcast, but on the podcast, we are launching a candidate series. As of just a little bit ago, I have 113 candidates that have signed up to be interviewed to be on our podcast. These are
Oh, that's
candidates that are
amazing.
running for Congress, running for US Senate, running for their local county board, running for their local water board, and also their school boards. These are candidates that are busting their ass off to make sure that they continue to challenge the status quo. these are the candidates that we need to be electing. And these are candidates that are organizers and they're working class people. They understand the struggles of the working class. So stay tuned for all of those episodes to come out. It is a lot of work. However, I think it is very important leading into the midterms and leading up to the 2028 presidential election, and then also, the 2028 House and Senate elections, but also just across the country, we have a lot of elections coming up because we need to get the people in there that represent the people, not corporate interests, not private money, not APAC.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that we get money out of politics and
Yep.
overturn Citizens United is a big
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's part of our platform at the Rise Above Justice Movement because in Citizens United literally fucked the working class completely over. And there is no
100%.
justice in that. There is nothing good about it. It is
Nope.
one of the most fucked up legislation that I've probably ever read because
Yeah.
it puts the corporate power and the corporate influence into our politics, and it allows entities and foreign entities like APAC to influence our government.
Yeah.
So we'll do more around Citizens United and interview some people that are doing some work around that. I think it's important to recognize what elections people have coming up. So I highly recommend, one, registering to vote and then getting out and voting for the candidates. Do your research on the candidates that are on the ballot. You can look at sample ballots through your county or through your state. You can look at all of that. It's different, individual states and such, but you can look at the sample ballots. Just go to Ballotpedia and look at who's on look at and you can also look at opensecrets.org. You can look at
Yeah.
fec.gov and look at who they're taking money from. These are tools that are here to help us understand the complexity and what's actually going on. So I think this is deeply important to highlight.
Yeah.
I think it's important to continue talking about. And, we'll do a lot of that on this show. Obviously, I keep hitting my tripod. Sorry, y'all. Um, but other than that, I'm deeply excited to continue doing this show. I think it's going to be a really eye opening moment for all of us. Continue having these conversations. And, Gwen, I look forward to continuing to collaborate with you, working alongside you. And,
Right back at you.
please take care of yourself. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. It's an honor. And yeah, we love y'all. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.